It's a bonus ep. Join Fran, me Babs, and special guest Ben Hampson for the Best of Sussex. Ben Hampson is a music producer and the mastermind behind the AA Sessions compilations, and we got to chat to him about 5 of his favourite Sussex bands as he's based in the region. Ben was interesting, lovely, let us ask a bunch of geeky music questions, and we had a big discussion around, among other things, B-sides, the state of rock and roll, and why music around Brighton is so damn good. I hope you enjoy this and see you all at the end. Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over-underrated?
Over-underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over-underrated.
Welcome to another Over-Underrated with Babs and Fran. How are we today, Fran?
We are doing good. As a football fan, I'm doing very good because of last night England beat Germany in a game of football for the first time in a billion years. So that's all good for me. How are you doing, Babs?
I'm good because I watched that particular football game with an Englishman who was claiming to be neutral, but then was very emotional each time a goal was scored. It was a very nice atmosphere, though we watched it in a bar in a square, and most bars, I think everyone was pro-England, but there was one bar with German fans who were very sad every time they scored a goal. So it was an interesting atmosphere here in Brussels last night. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Belgium game on Friday, but let's see. But this is not the geographies we're talking about today, because we have a special guest joining us from the Sussex region, producer Ben Hampson. Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you.
So I have a little bio for you, Ben, if you allow me to take you through it so we can introduce you to our listeners. So Ben is according to his social media, producer / mixer / engineer / arranger. He's worked with lots of different artists, including Blood Red Shoes, Block Party, Noel Gallagher, Nadine Shah on her Mercury-nominated album Holiday Destination. He's built the Agricultural Audio Studio in Lewes, Sussex, with another producer, Ben Hillier. He teaches music production at the BIM Institute in Brighton, and he's helmed the collaboration project AA Sessions, which brings together artists from the region to collaborate on a compilation album. So welcome, Ben. Was that accurate?
Ish, yeah.
Oh, okay. Tell me what we need to cut out.
No, that sounds about right.
Perfect. So, Ben, we are big fans of AA Sessions, or at least I am a big fan. Fran, I don't know how you feel about it. I am speaking on your behalf, but I'm going to presume you like it.
I'm new to the world.
The AA Sessions. So, yeah, I discovered the first AA Sessions volume back in 2019 when it came out, because I'm a big Blood Red Shoes fan, and they promoted it a lot. And yeah, it's a really interesting concept of bands come together to record a song. If I understood correctly, it's in one day, right, Ben? They do it on the day and you produce it soon after.
Yeah, the first round, which is what you're talking about, we did in sort of a week. So we did everything in a week. So the idea, there's no strict idea that it's a day, but generally that works out about right, to get everything done. And I think after that it gets a bit boring. No one's got any more time to give it, and then it kind of defeats the point. So roughly a day. Yeah,
roughly a day. But for the second one, it's a bit of a different approach, if I understood correctly, right? Because you're recording the album as the year goes on, and you're releasing a song every month in 2021. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of. But we've got the vinyl coming out for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But the vinyl leader time is about 5 months at the moment.
Oh.
4 months. So we actually have to finish it by the end of July.
Okay. Exclusive.
Yeah, so it will be an exciting month next month.
So regarding like COVID times, how has that affected the recording sessions?
Well, we started, so originally when we did this, it was just like, let's all get together. We did it a couple of summers ago. And then we planned to do it next summer and didn't. And then Steve Ansell from Blood Red Shoes, who runs Jazz Live, he sort of said in sort of end of December, should we try and do it every month for a year? Because we can't all get in the studio for an extensive period of time. But maybe that'll be a fun kind of project for all of our mental health. So the first one was thrown together in complete chaos because no one actually saw each other who did it. It was done in about, well, I think Steve actually took control of some of that one and then passed it on to me to finish in the last couple of days. And a similar vibe with the second one because we were in full lockdown and we just couldn't really do it. And then after that, we've been able to kind of get together and largely do it sort of, each month for a day or two. So we did a batch, I think it was in March, for say 2 or 3 days. So we got 2 or 3 done and then same again a couple of months later, really, which is quite fun. It's a little bit stressful, but it's quite a nice idea. The idea I've grown quite accustomed to, just having to put together a song each month, completely separate to everything else that everyone's doing. It's quite a nice idea.
Are these songs that the bands have had for a while, or do they write the song to be written at the studio? Or
no, it's completely on the hoof. That's
cool.
Yeah. So sometimes you don't know what's going to. Well, most of the time you don't know what's going to happen. And I think during the first time we did it, when it was a week of it, we knew I kind of knew everyone who came. And so I knew how they worked and I kind of thought it might, you kind of got a feeling of how it might come together, and that was fine. Whereas this one, and going forward, it'll be people that perhaps we know less well or haven't worked with. So you're not entirely sure what the dynamic is going to be. You've got to kind of feel it out pretty quickly, and you don't really have much time to sort of mess around with. You kind of have to get everyone on the page of kind of nothing's really precious.
Have you had a situation when a band has thought, no, I want to go again, and there's been no time, that they want to make any big changes or anything? Or
because it's usually done with one member of a band and from several bands. They don't tend to come as a band package, and I think what is quite liberating, or what people have said to me is quite liberating, is that they don't have to conform to being in their brand of their band. They don't have to be, Tiger Cup don't have to be Tiger Cup, or Blood Red Shoes don't. They can just kind of just go with it. And everyone so far has just totally got the idea and kind of enjoyed it, I think. So, there is no chance. There's no time that we do anything.
There's no divas in AA sessions?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
Someone might not want to put their name on something.
Okay.
Fine. Who knows? But that's about as close as we can get to, I don't know, choice.
So was AA sessions something that you came up with? Was it a kind of a thing from talking to Brighton bands about collaborating? How did it come about?
I mean, I didn't really come up with it in the sense that I guess it's very loosely modelled on the idea of the Hot Desert Session thing.
Yeah.
The stuff that Josh Homme does out in Joshua Tree. So it's that kind of vibe where I just always really liked it, and always sort of in the past had kind of done similar things with friends when I was younger, and was in a position, I'd got this live room in the studio, and it's on a farm, there's no one there to disturb us, and it was like, okay, well, let's just make it happen. And it's kind of a nice creative outlet as well, I think, for me personally, because I don't just have to do what I'm, I don't have to follow the recipe. I can play a bit and I can get involved with some of the other stuff, and it's kind of a little bit more exciting sometimes because you are operating on a kind of intuitive level, because you don't have the time to think about it, which I think probably potentially makes good art, maybe. You can spend months, making a record and overthinking everything, and actually that doesn't matter to the person who listens to it. The person who listens to it just wants to feel excited by something. And quite often, I think, kind of when you're going through the process of making demos, when I was even way back when I was making demos when I was 14, 15 or whatever, or working in a studio as a T-boy, and the band had brought their demos in, and this was kind of at the end of the night, early 2000s, so kind of home recording hadn't quite got to the levels it's got to now. So you come in with this demo, and then the whole band, they'd done the record, and they'd be sat around and they'd be trying to figure out why a song didn't have that thing that the demo had, and they can't put their finger on it. They're kind of, demo-itis. And nowadays, you record something half decent, you just fly it in from your laptop. But I think that kind of moment of creation is quite an exciting one. And it's quite liberating. I think that's sort of the essence of it, really. And it's kind of not worry about all the other things that the music industry brings. Just make something in a day that didn't exist before.
Being an older person, I remember the days of when bands would have to release like 3 B-sides per CD. And I heard stories of bands being told, you've got a day to make a B-side. And that sort of reminds me of what you're doing there. Like they just go in and just be creative and do something they would never put on an album or a single. Yeah. And some of the most interesting songs from the bands I liked growing up were these random B-sides when they just be doing bizarre songs, which I assume was being told, you've got to fill a 4-track CD, go and do something.
Well, there's that whole kind of being liberated. I mean, such a shame that B-sides aren't really a thing anymore, because...
Yeah, agreed.
Certainly all my favourite bands, the same, love their B-sides. It was the B-sides where the magic was, and you kind of, and that's kind of been lost, I think, a little bit, because, they can go off track and they can just, they don't have to conform to the thing that they're supposed to be. And they don't have to write that, 3-minute song that's on the radio, they can kind of just go for it. And actually that translates a lot better sometimes, I think.
And I think, bizarrely, a couple of bands I followed from those times, I think the Von Bondi's Come On, Come On was written to be a B-side. And then the studio thought, no, that's going to be the single, and that's over. So, magic can happen and even be commercial, can't it?
At least someone noticed in that.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
They often don't, So. And I think the other thing is as well, because there's not really, the way it works is everyone who's there on the day, we all share the writing split evenly, no matter how little or how much you perceive to have done. So there's no arguments about that. There's no money in it. I mean, well, not so far anyway. This isn't, it's not a game of money. But I think that's quite liberating, because no one has to kind of count pennies and cut corners. And it's just, it's like how records are supposed to be made, isn't it? It's like Dylan or Stones or Bowie. So you go in for a day and and it's kind of warts and all, and you just kind of live with it. And it's those things that make, I think, personally, that make you want to listen to it again, those imperfections. Or that's what I like about those records. So I think, I just think we've just been through so long, the last 20 years of people trying to, achieve perfection by moving further away from it, personally, for me. I just think everything should be quicker. And it is. I mean, today, generally, everything is, because budgets are so small. But, it's just kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see people in a room just kind of enjoying it.
And we will say that you can pre-order the AA Sessions vinyl, and you can buy it on Bandcamp. So, if you can, chuck them a few quid, still do. I think what you were talking about, kind of limitations making creativity blossom, what it made me think of was food, actually, because I think it's that famous Copenhagen restaurant Noma. Don't quote me on this, but I think when it first opened, they had a rule that they could only use local ingredients, including herbs, which in Denmark, as you can imagine, is a bit more limited. And actually having that stifling to creativity actually made it blossom much more, because they really only had a few things to play with. So and now it's a 2-star Michelin restaurant or 3-star Michelin restaurant or something like that. So
I think Denmark's where the Dogma film came from, wasn't it?
Dogma 95,
yeah. That sort of keep it as basic as they can and see what happens, But I think a few bands, like, didn't the Ravenettes have a rule that they could only
2 chords?
2 chords. Yeah. Okay. Can't do that over more than one album, surely, but
I don't think they did, but yeah.
I think that's like nothing kills creativity like choice, does it? Really, my studio doesn't really even have. I mean, we've got basic acoustic instruments, drums, basses, guitars, amps, pianos, the odd synth, but apart from that, there's nothing else. So you kind of have to be able to pick it up and do something with it, even if you can't play it. I had an interview years ago. I think it was around the time Bubblegum came out, Mark Lanigan record, which I really loved. And he was talking a lot about kind of how interesting it was when you had good musicians, not necessarily players, but musicians who were playing an instrument they didn't naturally play. I don't know, so guitarists playing drums or something. And because when you get to that level, you're listening to what you're doing and correcting yourself. But you can't do the technical things. You're just trying to make it work however you can, and you kind of find a way to do it. And I think that's quite interesting. And everyone can sort of pick up something and sort of noodle around on it, but it's quite nice to kind of be forced in that direction, I guess kind of lucky enough to know so many great people who are quite talented and just seem to be able to constantly sort of surprise you. You're kind of sat there and you're wondering, oh, how's this going to go? I don't know how this is going to go. And, so far, touch wood, everyone's just kind of, totally nailed it. Had something to bring to the table. So it's kind of fun. And I think as well, that whole, along with limitations, it's about deadlines is the other thing. It's like, I can't work without a deadline, and I don't know many musicians who can. So if you've got a very strict deadline, it just gets done. And then you move on, and it's such a mental relief to let it go. And I feel, it's kind of what you kind of thrive on, I suppose, after a while of doing sort of project-based kind of work. It's like, oh, it's gone. Can't mess with it anymore. And I think that's probably quite good for everyone.
Yeah, you would hear like in the 80s and 90s, these bands taking 6 years to make an album with like 10 producers and endless studios. And I think those days are surely gone now, because no one's going to give them that amount of money to make one album,
Yeah, it's just nuts, isn't it? It's like the Def Leppard spending a year on a kick drum in the steering or something. It's like, does anyone listen to that record now? Not really.
Are you from the area, or did you move to the area from somewhere else?
I grew up in Salisbury, and then after university lived in London and Guildford, and then moved to Brighton. So I'm actually just outside Brighton, nearer Brighton than Lewes, but the studio's nearer Lewes because it's the closest place to be. But I know Lewes a little bit.
But why did you pick then Lewes as the location for the studio, and how did it come about?
Me and Ben Hillier, who's I've built it with, he just happened to move to the same village that I live in. He's just a great producer, amazing. And we were looking for somewhere, we wanted somewhere interesting, and with low overheads as well, and somewhere that we could kind of have not as a commercial studio, or that was the original idea. So you can just book it as a band. There's kind of just an extension of the things that we do. And we were looking for a little bit, and a friend of ours had a workshop on a farm. These are split into these units, and there were a couple going, and we managed to get them. And then, so they're kind of just a big sort of agricultural farm. It's not like a wooden, beautiful old barn. It's quite industrial. And so inside they're just kind of split up with OSB. So we got 2 units, and we built basically like hay bale rooms inside them. It's kind of airtight's not the right way to put it, but certainly weatherproof, weathertight. So they're just kind of mixed rooms that we originally started with, I guess about 5 years ago maybe. So yeah, they're a bit of straw, and the insides are actually straw, so they're just kind of held up. They're kind of just like theatre drape covers this straw. We were actually going to render them, but we decided it sounded pretty good how it was. So it works quite well because none of the low end gets stuck in there. So, and then another unit came up a few years ago, and we built a live room out of it.
Yeah, because I mean, the way that I've read about it is like a small barn in the countryside, but it sounds much more sophisticated than that, and a bit more industrial, as you say. Yeah,
it's well, the sink's outside. It is undercover, so there's no comforts. The toilet is it's like kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe. But in the summer it's beautiful. It's great, and in winter it can be a little bit. Kind of start asking yourself, like, am I really nearly this old, and why am I making a cup of tea in the freezing cold? But,
and you hear that on the production, if it's summer or winter. There's no...
Yeah, I think you probably can. Yeah, no, I mean, the summer not much work gets done, so it's kind of everything sounds half finished. Just outside playing football, or, messing around. But yeah, no, that kind of stuff definitely wears off, I think.
It's actually quite like I live in Bournemouth, and I can't even think of one recording studio anymore. Like just like the area, it's just like my area, for example. All of the venues where a rock band would play are gone, unless you're going to go to like the BRC, or for example, everyone seems to have to make music at home, which is why in my areas we get mainly dance acts because they can do it at home. Like a full rock band, I think in my local area it's just completely gone, and I think it sounds like Brighton has still got a flourishing rock and roll scene. It's nice that you have studios like yours that exist for bands to go to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know because Brighton's a bit of a bubble in terms of the things that are going on here. We have had some venues close in favour of flats, cool stuff. I think this has been happening for years. I mean, it happened when I grew up in Salisbury, and I don't know if there's much left there now, but it was kind of going that way at the time. I don't know what, it's hard to know how that looks with Brexit and the pandemic and how that all plays out, because if bands can't tour in Europe where they make them because they aren't making any here because no one pays them anything, then there's not going to be an industry in this country, really. So yeah, we'll have to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I was going to say come to Brussels, because in Brussels there definitely is. Down the road from me, there's even a place called, I think, Home Plugged, where it's a house, like an actual house with a living room and a garden and everything. But people can go on a fairly residential street, but people can go and record there, and people can have gigs. I went to a gig which just finished at kind of 9:30 on the dot or whenever. So it's a space in the center of the city where people can go and record, but it's still sticking to the kind of sound limits and stuff like that. And there's big industrial parts that are kind of only now starting to become slowly a bit more gentrified and hipsterified. So I don't know how long it's going to last, but yes, you'll come to Brussels if you can. It was going to be what I was going to say, but I'm sure it won't last for very long either.
The sad thing is I don't know how you make money from music right now, because no one's getting paid for Spotify play, not anything that anyone could live on. So unless they're getting syncs or touring and getting paid, I can't really see where the money's coming from. So
I'm guessing soundtracks a bit, but not enough.
Yeah, so like sync stuff. Yeah, but I mean, for a big one, I mean, it's often, so I guess they're going to have to. The thing is, I suppose, as things evolve, when you're younger, it's much more easy to evolve with it very quickly, and probably have your head wrapped in that kind of world. And for perhaps those of us who are a little bit older, it's a bit more difficult to think about how those kind of old structures move, So you just have to rely on young people, I think, to sort it out.
I guess, we had idols who were multimillionaires, so people getting into music in the 90s thought they had a chance of, becoming this big behemoth. Maybe these days they don't ever see themselves ever being that because their idols are younger and they don't see themselves as becoming Bono. They see themselves becoming an artist, and maybe they have different goals and different views in the whole music industry. They do it because they love music and they want to create.
I think it's the same with many jobs now, isn't it? You can't do one thing anymore.
No.
You can't just be, you're very lucky if you can, perhaps, but you have to do lots of different things. And I just have the most massive amount of respect for anyone who is in a band, because there's no security whatsoever. There's almost no financial reward. There's all this plays into massive mental health issues. Everything is uncertain, and to kind of put yourself on the line for that, I think is kind of a remarkable thing, and I don't think we value it enough. And what we've had for the last 10 or so years is, bands who can do everything themselves. They're kind of experts in marketing and all these other skill sets that, they could probably make quite a lot of money if they go on and do something in those industries. But artists aren't allowed to just be artists anymore. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but, if you want to kind of be seen, then you have to be able to do a whole bunch of things. And unless you, are fortunate enough or canny enough to end up with a group of people in the band that can do all of these different roles, then you're kind of going to struggle. So yeah, I just think you just got to do a bit of everything, and I think your span of your lifespan as a band is tiny. Like how many records are you going to make? Well, 3 if you're lucky. And so you're going to have to do a lot of other stuff as well in your life, and hopefully that's a springboard for some of those things if you get well known.
Yeah, I think a lot about social media, because I think it's almost impossible for you to be a remotely well-known band, or at least to kind of get some traction without being somewhat of a social media expert. And not everyone is in a band, or if you're just one person as well, then it's a lot of pressure. And so Fran and I have day jobs. We're doing this for fun. We don't expect to get any money. And the amount of time it takes Fran to edit and me to do the marketing is huge. But, we know that if we didn't do it, it wouldn't get any listens. And I can't imagine what it's like for bands who might be trying to survive just on that. I think, as you say, they must have to do other jobs. And I'm always quite fascinated as well to see kind of what bands do in their downtime. Because I'm sure, I know that some kind of work menial jobs or are copywriters or other things, but you have to be. Is it a multi-hyphenate? Is that the term for these days? Some
of my favorite bands are now lecturing in Brighton.
Oh yeah.
So like Paul with the bass player in Gomez. He lectures in Brighton. Martin from Gene, he's now a lecturer, and that's another income. But it's what I find interesting is bands who kind of started in the early noughties when there was still some money to be made, who are still carrying on. Like I love British Sea Power, who are based in Brighton, and I'm always curious to see how they've gone from obviously being a band who are selling records and then seeing their career completely change over the past 20 years. And now, all their last 2 albums were done by the fans. Like we crowdsourced their albums, and I have no idea what they do between albums, because I assume they can't live full time. So it's weird how a band can be a full-time musician for maybe 15 years and then suddenly find out, I've got to get a job to do my passion.
In some ways, they were one of those bands that kind of grew up with their fans a little bit, and they've kind of been legitimized and kind of bona fide in a kind of high arts, perhaps the wrong word, but they've kind of gone beyond being that punk band anymore, and they're kind of steam because they kind of grew up with it. But it's like I always remember being a kid, and you kind of read about Kurt Cobain saying, I earned $1 million a year and I spent $1 million a year, and in 5 years I'm going to have to get a normal job and I have no idea what I'm going to do. And you're like, well, shit.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Getting off the maybe more depressing topics. So Ben, you actually made a playlist of 5 acts. I imagine who you've worked with / are on the AA Sessions record for us to kind of listen. Are they kind of 5 underrated artists, would you say, from the region?
Yeah, ish. I think I would have to look at the playlist quickly to tell you.
That's okay.
But I'm pretty sure most of them have been on the AA Sessions. Some of the stuff I did, some of it I didn't, but I know the bands and I like them. So let me just have a look what it was. So yeah, I think they're underrated, definitely. I didn't bother including, I didn't think there was much point in sort of mentioning sort of Blood Red Shoes or Tiger Cub or, you know, they've got so much coverage, what's the point?
We did an episode on Blood Red Shoes, and Tiger Cub are one of my favorite bands. They, according to Spotify, they were my artist of the decade for the 10s because I listened to them so much. But I will add that I also bought their records. Okay, so that's how much I was listening to them. That I had their CDs and was listening to them on Spotify. So yeah, that even from us, they're getting enough coverage. But yeah. So what was the first artist and song that you picked for the playlist?
It looks like I picked Projector. This was a single they released a couple of months ago. I actually did this with an EP with them. This is the first song from that. And I've done Lucy, who's the singer and the bassist, has appeared on several of the AA Sessions so far. They've been around for a few years. But yeah, I like it. It's good.
Yeah, so I knew Projector already from AA Sessions, and they're on the second volume as well, including the track, which I absolutely love the title, I Just Want to Lie in Bed and Drink My Wine. I think that was a great choice as well to kind of kick off the record because it was in January, pure lockdown. It felt like total escapism when I listened to it. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the How Does It Feel EP, which I think you also produced for them.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, it was from an interview with them that I got the quote of, you know, we recorded in a record in a small barn in the middle of the Sussex countryside. We love Ben. He gets the best out of us. He's very important to our sound. He stops us sounding too polished. So yeah. And yeah, I think this song has some fantastic sort of distorted synth guitar sounds. And I quite like the shout singing and the alternating male female vocals, because yeah, if this one definitely has more of a male lead, whereas I think, like you say, Lucy was more the lead singer before, right?
Yeah, I think they kind of alternate and they both write the songs, and I think they're both really quite good songwriters, and they both write great lyrics actually. But this one is funny because when we were doing the EP, I think we had 4 songs in the ring, and the 4th song when we were doing pre-production, I mean, this was like the week before. It's like, I'm not sure this one's up to it. And they hadn't long had a new drummer, and they came up with this bare bones of a track, and it was just really exciting, and we didn't know what we were doing when we did it. You know, we were just kind of going with it. I mean, I say they did it, and I helped a bit, but yeah, so it was kind of exciting, and I think it was all of our favorite thing from that EP. And probably because it was new and fresh, and you know, we didn't know what we were doing really, so we kind of enjoyed it, and it was the pressure was off a little bit, because it was just like, okay, well, we're just going to do this.
Okay.
How did it differ from the demo? Was it quite a change, or?
Well, it wasn't really written in the sense that it was just this sort of slightly mental jam. The drum time signature is a bit weird, and it kind of ironed itself out. For instance, the chorus vocal was completely different until 5 minutes until we did it, and I just sort of said, I don't think the chorus is good enough. I think we can do something better. And so we sent Ed, the guitarist, off down to the river to think of something else after 5 minutes.
Down to the river, okay.
and we said we've got to do this before he comes back, because if we haven't, we're just going to argue about it all day. So we just, Lucy just did a thing, and we didn't even redo the vocal. We just kept it as it was, because it was kind of worked. So it had like a little story behind it.
One geeky thing I was going to ask you is I really love the sound of the main riff, and it kind of sounds like a dirty keyboard, but I assume it is a guitar.
I think it's guitar and
is it, because I know they're 3-piece, aren't they? So I didn't know if I was sneaking a keyboard, but it has like a really dirty sort of like Death from Above kind of sound to it, which I really liked.
There was a lot of synths on this. I'd have to hear it. You'd have to point it out to me. Which
the main theme we're going through.
There are some synths on it that double some bits, and there are some weird synthy high bits. I'd have to listen to it.
It's on there and it sounds brilliant, so thank you.
Okay, so Fran, did you know Projector before?
No, out of the 5, the only band I've come across was Sick Joy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought this one was brilliant, so thank you for introducing it to me.
I was a bit scared with this one because it was quite loud, and Fran and I have slightly differing music tastes, but yeah, so I'm happy.
But it's loud and melodic. This is like 9 Inch Nails. I love. I just don't like it when it's like just loud for the sake of being loud. So this is cool. This is on my list of added it to my Spotify likes.
Oh, great. So next up, Ben, what have you picked?
I picked a song called Total 90 by a band called Ditz, who I just done an album with actually since January. This hasn't. I literally finished it today.
Right.
But this is a single we did, I think it was last summer or something. What is there to say? It's got a great video.
Yep.
I've seen it, damn it.
It's like a 1980s football game with is it slaves in it as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
And fur, I think. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Nice.
They're nice guys, but it's quite noisy. I think I knew them when they were students, actually, and sort of seen them grow in kind of confidence and swagger as they kind of got a bit older in the last couple of years, to the point where I think that, like, for instance, the album that we've just done, I think the lyrics are really, really, really good. I think it's, it is quite noisy and probably doesn't tick all the melodic boxes. But I think Callum, the singer's got something useful to say. So that was my way into playing a bit of Ditz, really.
I had that on my thing to ask you, is the content of the songs what gets you? Because I think some producers, it's all about the sound, but is what he's writing about, is that what influenced you to want to produce them? Is that part of it?
I think it depends on the band. I'm not very interested in the sound at all, but I just like things that sounds it's this kind of stuff anyway, to sound kind of real. And seeing them live, it's just chaos. It's mental. It's great, and just trying to capture some element of that in the recording isn't the goal, really. But yeah, I just like their attitude and their general thing, that the swagger they have, rather than specifics, because I think probably I didn't hear the lyrics before we worked on it. I think you can tell a lot by the way people sort of carry themselves. You know what you like, don't you? It doesn't necessarily have to fit into a certain pigeonhole of that type of music or that type of music. It sort of kind of gets you in some way. It kind of, you feel like you could add to it and help them make it emotionally interactive, I suppose.
So yeah, I think this was the only band on your playlist that I didn't know, and I really like the very unexpected directions it goes in. You know, the vocals go from loud to quiet to loud. I got a lot of different vibes of bands that I like. So vocally, I got Shame kind of almost immediately as the song started. The vocals from Shame, and it also reminded me of the Swedish bands Viagra Boys and Fuse that I'm a big fan of. So it was all good influences coming together. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. But what I actually also enjoyed, I didn't realize that they'd done a cover of Fuck the Pain Away by Peaches, and it is phenomenal. I don't know if you've heard it, Fran, but basically,
no, I want to.
It's so good because so it starts and you think, okay, this is going to be like a simple rock cover. It starts with, you know, just drums, a bass, and the singing, but then there's some real distorted guitars in between the vocal takes. So yeah, it was a lovely surprise. So yeah, thank you, Ben, for introducing me to Dits. Fran?
Yeah, there's some live clips of them playing, and they sound pretty good live as well. So like, I think you've done a good job to catch the loud sound on. No, you know, you've spoken about me not being like, I'm not a big fan of idols and slaves, but I did enjoy this. Like, yeah, I like there's not a track on here which I didn't enjoy actually. So you've done very well with your choices, and yeah, and I was just kind of blown away by, you know, how they look and how they present themselves. Hopefully, if they do open the world, and if they do have a Great Escape festival in Brighton again, I can come and see them.
Yeah, it's funny because I have no idea what they look like. I think I briefly looked at the picture that they have on Spotify, so I'm going purely on the sound and not really on the lyrics because actually some of the songs on the playlist I sat up and paid attention to the lyrics, but I think I was just so intrigued by is it Callum, the singer's voice, that kind of mesmerized me, I think, more than anything else. And then it was, is it noisy, is it quiet? So yeah, okay, well now I'm definitely going to go and check out the video. And
he dresses in a blonde wig in the live show I saw, and I think isn't one of the most well-known songs, is it Gay Boy, is quite a big hit for them.
That was a previous single, yeah.
Yeah. I saw that one as well. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so what's the next choice, Ben?
The next choice, I have less to say about because I'm involved in any way, shape, or form with this, is 10 Girls by Cersei. And this is a record that Steve Ansell did with her, and I just think it's great. I think it's just an amazing pop song. Just blows me away every time. That's kind of it. I'd be interested to know what you think.
I remember, because I follow Stephen Blood Red Shoes on social media, I remember around the time this came out that he was promoting it a lot. And, you know, the album has very striking visuals, but for some reason, I don't know, I just didn't click through. I didn't go and listen to it. And I'm absolutely delighted that you included it on this playlist because, yeah, I absolutely love this song. I think I've listened to it about 7 times today. Yeah, the lyrics as well are very good because the way I'm interpreting it is she's with a new lover and she's feeling insecure about all the girls that have come before. And she doesn't want to be another one on, you know, the bedpost or whatever it is, but it's very subtle. And yeah, the synths, I called them atmospheric / disturbing, you know, against the lyrics and the clean percussion. I think it's brilliant. Love the way it builds. And I imagine, Fran, this was right up your street, actually.
It was. And I, apparently the lyrics is, regarding the Handmaiden's Tale, which I've never seen.
Yeah. That's going to come up again later. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, because I heard this, and I to me this is the most commercial track. Like, you know, it sounds like Lorde is it has that, you know, that cool pop feel to me. And I did check out her on Google, and it sounds like this was playlisted on Radio 1. So you know, but then when I checked Spotify, it didn't have the matching play, so it's still very underrated. But I thought it was brilliant, and yeah, and I was going to ask, I know you didn't produce this, Ben, but like when a band does record with you, are they conscious of it being played on radio? Like, are they scared of like, having a long intro or being too weird or having swearing, or do they just care about the art?
It just depends on what we're doing. I think it's we sit down before we start working together and decide exactly what they're trying to achieve, and therefore, and kind of come up with like a mission statement is perhaps the wrong phrase to use, but some kind of brief thing to guide us. So if they just want to be on the radio, then yeah, if we've got a choice to make about a long intro, then it's a very simple choice to make. But it just depends on what we all agree on, and what everyone wants, really.
Yeah, I've read articles about the Spotify sort of algorithm, or the fact that people are consciously using shorter intros now because so many people discover songs through Spotify playlists, and if it's not catching their attention within 5 seconds, they're going off. And yeah, I don't really know how to feel about that, to be honest, because I'm sure on the one hand, in some situations some filler is cut, but on the other hand, I mean, I like songs I like many songs that are very long, like 6 minutes, 9 minutes, and I don't think we're going to have Paranoid Android at number 2 again anytime soon.
Yeah, Tubular Bells would not be a hit these days, would it? Really, a 9-minute instrumental.
No, but I think the thing to remember is somewhere someone's making some weird and wonderful music, and it is being released, and you can listen to it. It's just a bastard to find it, and that's the problem now. And I think, it is out there. People are making some really cool stuff, but it's
the double-edged sword of Spotify, I find, because I think Spotify for me has introduced me to so many bands that I would have not found anywhere else. But that's because I am a selective music fan. Like I do listen to playlists, but I'm going to go down the related artists rabbit hole, and listen to playlists made by artists that I like, for example, rather than just go on Viral 50 or whatever it is. But yeah, I think from what I've read about user behavior on Spotify, most people are not like that. They're just going on the bigger playlists and doing that. So yeah, of course you're right that there's always going to be dedicated music fans always looking out for that weird and wonderful music. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame that it's becoming so digitized, or
if live shows are happening and vibrant, and there's enough money for people to get paid to do them, even if there's a small amount, then that's how you discover bands, I suppose. And I think there is probably an appetite for people to go and see bands at the moment. Just need the venues and the infrastructure, over the next few years. But it's interesting talking about the algorithms and Spotify, because the one thing that I've talked about with Steve quite a lot is because we're doing a song a month, we get quite quick feedback about what people listen to and what people aren't listening to. It's quite depressing, like the one song that I really, really liked that we did, and I thought, I kind of really like this one, I'm really into it. Like no one's listened to it, no one. And the ones that are done in just kind of starts throwaway, are the ones that kind of, which it just goes to show, doesn't it? You shouldn't be precious about anything. But it is quite interesting. And I think you do start to notice, and you could probably quite easily tailor the way you make something specifically for Spotify. And I don't think it would actually have to be necessarily pop to do it. It just has to do sort of certain boxes, which is kind of interesting and probably not worth thinking about. Insane and healthy.
Yeah, I remember like a big pop producer said it's all about the drums and vocal. As long as you've got great drums and great vocal, it can be a pop hit. People that care about bass is what he told me. Is that true?
I hope not. It's a bass player.
People only listen to the melody and the drums on the radio more as the person hits them.
Yeah, that's probably true, but it's a bit kind of sort of 80s school of thinking, I think. I don't know.
But yeah, I remember Charlie XCX, who, writes pop for herself and writes pop for other people. I remember her talking about how she'd been to sort of these boot camps with fellow songwriters, and how sometimes they'd kind of have a competition from themselves of like, how many, pop cliche, well, maybe not cliches, but how many typical pop things can we jam into one song, and I guess that's like the I don't know, Radiohead doing Just, trying to get as many chords in as possible, because here it's like, with the view to tick all the boxes, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, but this, obviously this isn't a new phenomenon. This has been going on since the beginning of music. I mean, it's capitalism, isn't it? It's make as much money as you can. I don't know. So it is what it is. But I don't think, and some good stuff maybe comes out of that. But also, I think most of that stuff isn't going to be listened to or in 10 years. I don't know. Whether that's important, I don't know. It just has to move someone, doesn't it? It means something to someone, and that's all that matters, I suppose.
It reminds me of the KLF back in the day on their guides on how to get a number one. But moving on back to the playlist, we're going to Sick Joy Vibe Sucker.
Joy. Yes. Okay, so I did do this one. They've been around a little while, and when I first met them, which was a few years ago now, I wanted to do something a bit less sort of straight up rock, and a bit straight up rock's the wrong word, but just sort of maybe slightly more, slightly rawer or something. Anyway, we went away to Newcastle and we had a lovely couple of weeks there in the studio, and I really liked the song, and they've got a few plays on it. They've just made an album actually up in London with another producer, which I imagine is going to be great. But this didn't get as much. I don't know if it was the promotion or whether people didn't respond to it. I'm not sure, but I really like this song. I really like everything about it. We had a really nice time making it. I just remember Michael, who's the singer, sort of doing Freddie Mercury impressions at 4 a.m. while we were trying to get the vocal done for this, and it was the last day, and we were all a bit wired. So it was good times.
No, it's a great indie track, and yeah, and I was surprised it's not like as popular as like Sports Team, for example, remind me of. But I don't know how a rock and indie band get big these days. Like, you've got Royal Blood and Brighton who, headlining massive festivals, and then you get a band who are equally talented, just playing in pubs. I don't know. It's bizarre how it works these days.
It is, although I think Sick Joy possibly you might be hearing a lot more about them soon, maybe, judging by what's going on in the background, but hopefully, because they worked hard.
That's really good to hear, because I knew the song already. I got into them after the first AA Sessions records, and I think I really love the song, although I have to say my favorite is History, which I think you also did, Ben. That one was on repeat a lot, but yeah, this is fantastic. It's rock and roll with pop sensibilities. The chorus is extremely earwormy and catchy. And Sick Joy, I think they were my first lockdown gig that I saw, really back in probably April. They did a Facebook Live gig where I don't know where they were doing it, but they'd rigged up something very simple, and it was reassuring. I felt like, okay, yeah, we're really in the shit here. I don't know what's going on, but okay, bands that I like are still making stuff happen. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you're saying that they are that kind of band. And yeah, if they've got a new album coming out and we're going to be hearing a lot more about them, fantastic. They deserve it.
And the next and the final track are a band I've noticed support them on tour quite often.
Yes, they had. They're kind of mates with each other, yeah, for sure. So this is "Speak to My" by Clip Trip, of which there are other versions. I didn't do this, but I know them. I kind of work with them a little bit, but didn't do the album. But I just think they're incredible live, just unbelievable, because they're a 3-piece, and Scott, who's the guitarist, sort of does everything. Everything you hear seems to be coming out of his guitar at once. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And the drummer, Daphne, is just so on it. And Annie's just brilliant. And it's just this kind of ball of energy that all moves in the right way. It's like, I don't know, like watching Rage Against the Machine or something, when all the energy is moving in a certain direction, and it has that kind of feeling, which maybe is because it's a three-piece and you've got all that kind of energy from the guitar. But I did a live session with I think it was about this time last year, just a couple of tracks, just at mine. And yeah, it's just like they're actually playing it. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, they're pretty good. So anyway, yeah, they're great. I really like her lyrics, and she's got great things to say and questions to ask. So I don't know what they're doing at the moment in terms of band stuff. I don't know if they're doing another record, an EP, or waiting to tour. But yeah, I think they're great.
Randomly, one of the only places you can play for in a band is a metal club in Bournemouth, and they're supporting a metal band next year, I noticed.
Oh.
So I don't know how that works, but yeah, they'll see. I guess they, like I said, the guitar's quite loud, so maybe they can kind of fit in with the metal scene. So yeah, they have a tour booked, and I think they're playing like for Joiners and Southampton, and some of those cool little bars in Bath and those sort of places. So if they're in Bournemouth, I will definitely go and check them out, because I thought they're brilliant. And Babs, they remind me of that Belgian band.
Cocaine Piss.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cocaine Piss.
Yeah, absolutely. I got that vibe as well. Even though I think is it Annie, the lead singer? She Cocaine Piss. They're kind of her voice is all over the place in a good way. But what I really enjoyed about Annie's vocals it was like simultaneously very strong and controlled, but also vulnerable. I think her vocal range is sensational on here. And yeah, I absolutely love this. The lyrics really hit you in the face immediately. Any songs about internalized misogyny, I'm on board. It also reminded me a bit of Sleigh Bells in a way, because Sleigh Bells are also kind of mixing kind of the really distorted synths with guitars, which again is right up my street. And yeah, The Handmaid's Tale comes back, I think, because according to their Spotify, after their first show, the author of Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood, said, "Don't let the bastards grind you down," which is this quote from The Handmaid's Tale. And I think Annie's from Toronto, so yeah, I guess that kind of checks out that Margaret Atwood might be a clit drop show. But yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. And actually, Ben, I heard the album when it came out last year. I think I discovered them through related artists on Spotify. They're definitely a more recent band. And I listened to the album and I loved it. But I think because it was so loud and hard, and I don't know if it's lockdown, I don't know if it's just, my music change tastes every year. I kind of didn't come back to it immediately. But when I listened to this again, I was like, why on earth did I not come back to this? And I went and just bought the CD off Bandcamp. So yeah, and I was pleased to see as well that there's like a remixed version of it. And yeah, some of the people who've remixed it have also been on AA sessions. So AKDK have remixed a couple of their songs. So if they tour anywhere in Europe, I would also be very much up for seeing them.
What else is worth checking out, Babs?
On AA sessions?
Oh no, not this band.
Oh, this I just the album Without Eyes, like the whole album is really good. It was one of those. So when I went in to look at it, I think I'd saved about 5 or 6 songs, and this wasn't one of them. And I'm like, how was this not one of them? This is a really good song, but which just goes to show, like I think it's an album that's worth listening to more than once, and when you're in the mood to listen to harder rock, obviously.
Ben, how do bands approach you to produce them, or do you see a band live and approach them? How's it work that way?
I don't think I've ever approached anyone. I'm not very good at that kind of thing. I guess they approach me. But after a certain amount of time, a lot of it is kind of word of mouth, isn't it? I think, and someone knows someone, so everything's quite connected, really, in many ways, which is kind of nice. It's kind of a nice thing. But yeah, more usually they approach me, I guess.
Is there a band in the local scene who you'd like to produce or work with? Haven't yet had a chance yet.
I'd really like to do something with Circe, maybe an AA session, although I don't know whether that's possible. I would like to. Who would I like to work with? Loads of bands, really. I'd really love to do an album for Clipture. I would really like to do that. Who else? I don't know. I really like working with Steve. I'd love to do more stuff with Steve, maybe even outside AA sessions. I don't know how that works, but he's a very fun guy to work with. He's doing a lot of production at the moment. Kind of similar to the Cersei vibe, I guess. But he's a man who's full of an extreme amount of energy, and he's very direct, and it's very it's kind of reductionist. And it's quite refreshing. It's quite good fun.
Yeah, because I think he's produced I don't know how you pronounce it, ARXX or ARX. Yeah, and they've got some great songs, and they seem to be getting bigger recently. And I've heard some of their songs on I think like on TV or on TV shows. So yeah, he's doing well. Yeah, I'd love to see a collaboration between the two of you. I think that would be really fun. And yeah, I met Steve very briefly after a Blood Red Shoes in Luxembourg in 2009. And yeah, it was absolutely mad gig. You know, Blood Red Shoes Live are so energetic as a two-piece. And yeah, he was still so full of energy and giving me very strong opinions about why he didn't like the current indie drum sound, I think, in 2009. He's like, oh, it's too much. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting music. Wasn't expecting to talk about that, but yeah, cool, all right.
He's always on one. There are a bunch of bands. I think it'd be nice to it's kind of nice to pair people up with, someone perhaps from a smaller local band and someone who's perhaps, got a higher profile who might not necessarily be Brighton based, and kind of bring them together. I think that's kind of the ultimate goal, just kind of get creative people, kind of new sort of collaborations and possibilities that they can then go off maybe and explore further, or, because it's kind of really about who you know and kind of things. It just seems to be a nice thing for everyone to do. It's kind of doesn't seem to have been to anyone's detriment yet, at least.
When you were growing up, was there any bands who you were into who you'd like to work with now, or?
I think they're all
They're retired, or?
They'll still be going. Christ. Don't know. I would love to do something with one of the members of Sonic Youth, for sure. The Kim Gordon solo album, have you heard that?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I really like that kind of stuff. But from when I was growing up, I think they were all dead or given up, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, Thurston Moore was the last gig I saw pre-COVID, and he played at this venue called Les Ateliers Klaus in Brussels, which is the venue he always plays in because it's a very small venue, and they also have residency for artists. So I think he actually may even kind of go and record there. So, and he lives in Stoke Newington, right? Or something like that. So
yeah, I think quite often seems to play at Brighton, or did before COVID. So here every now and again, playing in a tiny venue somewhere.
There are two other AA Sessions bands that I'd geekily like to ask you about, Ben, if that's okay. I got really into Sweet Williams. I think he's amazing, and he's putting out so much music, and it's also good. So yeah, I was really intrigued to hear about your working with him and what it's like, and where does he find the creative talent for putting out so much good music?
So Sweet Williams, Tom House, who used to be in what's it called? Charlotte Field. Were kind of on Fat Cat back in the day, sort of years ago. I guess maybe end of the 90s. They were I guess they're kind of a bit of a sort of cult band now, and that kind of maybe math rock it turned into. Anyway, I first met him, I guess, 10, 15 years ago, and we came to do a record, and he would type his lyrics out on a typewriter.
Oh, nice.
He's like the ultimate romantic, and he's just the most amazing man, amazing guitarist, but he thinks about everything in these certain patterns, which is a really interesting way to compose. And We've done a couple of records together. The last one we did, he played everything.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of very odd. It was a great record. I really liked it. And yeah, he's brilliant. He's great to have around. In fact, he played a little bit on one of the tracks that came out recently. He played a little bit of guitar, but I had to say he's in Spain at the moment, so he had to do a bit over the internet and send it back to me. But yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah, to me, I think he's my King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard of just like, he's putting out so many albums, and for me, it takes a while to get into it again. And then I've just got into it, and then it's like, oh, another one's coming out, and I like to take the time to listen to them. So yeah, that's really good. I hope he keeps it up. I think we touched on it a little bit, but so many people talk about the state of rock music, British rock music. I think the playlist that you gave us, it's 5 bands from one specific region of the UK, and it's absolutely showing that rock and roll is alive and well and thriving. But I think that people know that because it's not a more mainstream genre at the moment, people are having to be innovative, and this is rock, but there's a lot of synths, for example, and other things going on. And yeah, when people say rock is dead, it's like, well, no, it's still there. You just have to dig for it. What you're saying is the genre that was mainstream when I was a teenager isn't mainstream anymore, and you can absolutely still find bands doing fantastic music. So yeah, long live British rock and initiatives like the AA Sessions, really.
What I noticed from these tracks and other contemporaries is that there's a lot of alt 90s vibes. Like everyone seems to be honing in on the 90s, like shoegaze, grunge, sort of like noise rock. Have you noticed that yourself, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, there's that certainly in Brighton, that's been going on, probably started happening about, I guess, 2011, 12, or certainly bands like Tiger Cub kind of pulled that through, really. And then that's kind of been going on for a little while. I think it's kind of probably had its day now, and those bands are starting to change a little bit, maybe. And there's a little bit less of the grunge thing about, certainly, but I guess we're just working our way through music history from start to finish, aren't we, really? But yeah, there's definitely a lot of old 90s going on, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get to the noughties very soon, I'm sure. I feel like visually...
The noughties was looking back already, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's strange because I don't know, again, from being on Instagram, I feel like a lot of accounts that I follow at the moment are being quite nostalgic about the noughties, whether it's fashion or or I don't know, maybe Britney Spears being in the news, obviously, is making people reflect about certain things that are definitely left behind in the noughties. But I definitely feel like 90s as the retro years, that's been going for a while. So yeah, I just think it's inevitable. Or I don't know, even further back to the 20s and it'll be flatters again. Who knows? Yeah.
Spare us the noughties, sure. Yeah, I was too old to really enjoy culture in the noughties. You know what I mean? Like the 90s, I kind of got it, but in the noughties, I've just kind of become cynical already. I don't know if that was because I was working in music and kind of seeing it unfolding, but for me, I'm sure there are great bands, but not many of them kind of lasted for me, I'm afraid.
That's quite interesting because I think I was at uni in the mid-noughties, and that was kind of garage rock revival indie time. So I feel like, say 2003 to 2008, there's a lot there that I maybe even 2002, 2008. But my personal cultural void where I really didn't listen to a lot of current music was probably 2009 to 2012. I have no idea what happened a lot of the time. And then 2012, I went on the music network, This Is My Jam. And there kind of I got into a lot of kind of current and old music. And then from then on, I've been much more actively music curious, let's say, and being like, now that I'm older and working to be into music, it's something that I have to put the effort in because, I'm not going clubbing or I'm not listening to the radio and stuff like that. So yeah, so I'm not as cynical about the noughties, but maybe, working in the music industry, I'm sure doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me sound like I'm really grumpy. I'm not. I think there's amazing, wherever we are, but there's amazing music coming out now all the time. So much so that I can't keep up with it. I'm not very good keeping up with it, and I'm not very good at names or anything like that. If I can't hold it, I don't understand it very much.
Yeah.
It's just my brain works, so I have to get other people to recommend me things and point me to things. But there's just so much great music coming out now. I just didn't connect with it in the noughties because it wasn't my time to connect with it.
It's the paralysis of choice that we were talking about as well. Like, I have a Spotify playlist called Music to Listen to, which if someone recommends a band or I see a band that sounds interesting, I put it in there. It's got 3,800 songs. And every now and again, I'll be like, I'm in the mood for new music. And then I'll go and discover a bunch of new bands and I'll save the relevant ones. But then equally, sometimes I go in my Spotify library, who I'm following, and I'm like, who the hell are these people? Because it's people I listened to once and then I didn't follow through. I mean, you can see I've got a bunch of CDs behind me. I still like a CD, and obviously very sad that AA Sessions isn't out on CD though. I understand vinyl is the way, and probably this year's the year I'm giving into vinyl. But yeah, I think I agree with you there that if it's not physically in your hand, or for me in my Bandcamp collection, because that's a smaller selection of songs and records that I return more easily and quickly to, whereas I think Spotify is just so big. I don't know where to go sometimes.
It's going to be quite hard for me because I can imagine now lots of artists are going to release a lot of music over the next year, and I haven't been catching up with a lot of modern releases, and I looked at what's been released since January, and I was like, oh no, there's too much good music. I haven't got time to listen to all these albums. Guys, stop making good albums, because I can only
how dare you.
I know it's going to be a nightmare when all the other bands get going again. It's going to be ridiculous the amount of albums are going to be released in the next year.
Fran, literally, I was stressing today because Fran and I did a best of 2020 episode where we picked our 10 favorite songs of the year, and I was like, have I listened to 10 different bands from this year? I think I have, but I can't remember their names. I don't know where I've saved them. Oh my god, how am I going to do this? So I think we're all in the same boat there.
Is there any further listening, Ben? Any songs that you'd like to add to a playlist, or songs we should listeners to check out?
I would just go and check out those bands, check out any of the bands that kind of maybe are on their related artists, see what you dig up, because they're all, I mean, there's possibly a vibe with all of these, but I think they're all different enough perhaps that they might dig up some different things. And also I heard this album by Bird Engine. I think it's Bird Engine. It came out maybe the other week. Anyway, it's great. I would recommend going to check that out. Nothing to do with me. But I think he's from Sussex. It's really cool. So I would go check that out.
Bird Engine. I've not heard of them, I think, but
it's super dark. It's great.
Oh yes, okay, good. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to plug or promote? No. Okay. Well, there we go. I go and listen to AA Sessions. Go and buy AA Sessions. I will say on Ben's behalf once again, because it's a really great project, and I definitely discovered a lot of new bands and related artists from there. And if you're into your Blood Red Shoes and your Tiger Cubs, I think you'll be into a lot of stuff from there as well. Fran, anything else?
Thanks for being our guest. It's our first interview episode.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully have some more. And thank you for getting me into some new bands, and thank you for Babs for introducing me to the AA Sessions and yourself. And hopefully in the future, I can see these bands in person, and maybe I can get to Brighton, because I love watching bands in Brighton. Is it the Green Door store?
Green Door stores.
Yeah, I saw a band there a couple of years ago, and it was a big sweatbox, but it was a laugh. So not very COVID safe, unfortunately.
No, definitely not. I was just going to say, yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having the chat. Much
Fantastic.
appreciated.
Thanks, Ben. See you.
So that was the best of Sussex. Thank you again to Ben Hampson for guesting on this episode. It was a really entertaining one and lovely for Fran and I. We are going to be on a break, as I mentioned at the end of the last episode. Might catch us guesting on a few other podcasts in the meantime, but we'll hopefully be back in autumn. We should still be posting on social media, so if you want to follow us, it's at OU Music Pod on Twitter, at Overunderrated Music Pod on Instagram, or if you really want to talk to us, you can email us on overunderratedmusicpod@gmail.com. Have a lovely summer, stay safe, and see you on the other side.